Did you know that between 2021 and 2024, a span of just 3 years, central banks around the world quietly snapped up more than 3,000 metric tons of gold? That's not an exaggeration. It's the largest accumulation by official institutions in a single 3-year span since at least 1950. And yet, hardly anyone is talking about it. It's not a flashy headline or a viral meme. It's a silent, invisible financial tidal wave, and what it could mean for currencies, debt, and your savings is absolutely chilling. Imagine a hidden global network of banks, vaults, and balance sheets, all quietly shifting their bets, not on tech stocks, not on government bonds, but on ancient gold, tons of it, sitting in deep vaults, far away from public scrutiny. A network that moves trillions of dollars, yet whispers its decisions instead of broadcasting them. Today, I'm taking you deep into the shadows of that network. By the end of this video, you'll see why this surge is not about fear of inflation or safe haven demand. It's a carefully orchestrated play, a play designed to protect the old financial world or prepare for its collapse. And the truth is, if you want to stay ahead when the next shock hits, you need to understand the story behind every ton. The surge began in 2021. After years of modest activity, central banks added just 463 tons of gold that year, already a rebound from 2020's 255 tons, but still modest. By 2022, however, demand exploded. Net purchases soared to 1,136 tons, the single largest yearly haul in modern history. And in 2023, they added another 1,037 tons. In 2024, similar story, over 1,000 tons again. When you add them up, that's over 3,000 tons in just 3 years. This is not random, this is not casual. This is a coordinated accumulation on a scale the world has rarely seen. Why now? Because these banks smell something in the air: rising global debt, currency instability, geopolitical tension, and the kind of pressure that can blow traditional financial systems apart. Consider a mid-size emerging market country. Their currency reserves were once mostly in dollars. After 2022, they quietly began moving large portions into gold. To the casual observer, nothing changed. But inside those vaults, tons of gold quietly piled up. They knew something most of the world ignored. The old financial rules were no longer reliable. Meanwhile, ordinary investors like Ali, a young man in a volatile country, saw inflation bite at his daily expenses. He bought some gold coins, a few bars, maybe a small ETF. He thought he was playing it safe. But he had no idea that the real players, governments, central banks, were buying by the ton, preparing for a seismic shift that could reset the global financial system. And that reset might be coming sooner than most expect. Because when official demand gets this high, demand from institutions that oversee trillions in global reserves, it sends a message. It's not subtle. We don't trust the current system. Central bank buying doesn't follow the same rules as retail investing. They aren't chasing 10% annual returns or quarterly gains. They are protecting balance sheets. They are preserving purchasing power when currencies collapse. They are holding an asset with no counterparty risk, no counterparty default, no paper promises, an asset as old as civilization itself, gold. And that's why gold matters now more than ever. For centuries, gold has been a universal store of value, impervious to inflation, recession, currency devaluation, even war. But not all gold is equal. For central banks, it's physical, allocated, unleverageable gold, vault-held bullion, not paper contracts. This is gold that cannot be frozen, cannot be confiscated, cannot disappear if a bank fails. Which brings us to the big question: what are they preparing for? Could it be a dramatic devaluation of the US dollar? A global reset of reserve currencies? A wave of sovereign defaults triggered by runaway debt? Burdens, or all of the above? History offers some chilling lessons. Take the 1970s, for example. Global inflation surged, currencies collapsed. Gold, which had been a forgotten relic, suddenly became the only safe haven. Governments scrambled. Ordinary citizens watched their savings vanish. And those who had invested in real gold, they survived. They didn't just survive, they thrived because they held something immutable. Or consider the Russian crisis of 1998. The ruble collapsed. Banks froze accounts. People lost life savings overnight. But Russia, which held a portion of its reserves in gold, was able to stabilize some economic sectors while ordinary citizens suffered. The lesson is always the same. Gold is survival money. Now, fast forward to today. Between 2020 and 2024, global sovereign debt swelled by tens of trillions of dollars. Across emerging markets, government debt to GDP ratios leapt to levels not seen in decades. At the same time, central banks were buying gold as fast as mines could produce it. Now imagine a shock, a major default, a widespread currency collapse, a freeze of foreign exchange assets, and suddenly, central banks start turning to gold to stabilize their economies. That's why they don't just buy gold casually, they stockpile it like a lifeboat in preparation for storms most of the world cannot even see. Meanwhile, ordinary investors and savers, people holding paper money, stocks, or short-term bonds, are left scrambling. Savings lose value overnight, currency becomes volatile, liquidity dries up, panic sets in. But the central banks, they stand ready, like survivors holding lifeboats while everyone else struggles in the stormy waters. Let's go back to real people. Imagine citizens in a country with poor fiscal discipline, heavy debt, and dependence on foreign capital. The government devalues the currency, printing more money to pay off debts. Prices skyrocket. People's savings vanish. Their lives become harder overnight. In contrast, members of the elite, connected to central banks or government coffers, watch value preserved. They hold gold. They hold real assets. While the rest suffer, they survive. And this isn't just theory. In Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and Lebanon, we have seen exactly this play out. Citizens' life savings were wiped out by runaway inflation. Meanwhile, state reserves, often containing gold, were protected. The financial divide is growing, and central banks are quietly widening it, ensuring that the few who control the system survive, even if everyone else doesn't. Now, what does this mean for you watching this video? If you rely solely on paper savings, local currency, bank deposits, or conventional investments, you may be exposed, not just to inflation, but to systemic collapse. But if you understand this trend, the same trend that drove over 3,000 tons of gold accumulation in 3 years, you have a choice. You can shift a portion of your savings into real physical assets, or at least you can stay alert to risks. You can watch the signals that ordinary media ignores. You can prepare quietly, intelligently, before the storm hits. Because eventually, when the next wave comes, and it will, those who ignored the warning signs might regret it deeply. I'm not telling you to go all in on gold. I'm not saying it's a magic bullet. Gold doesn't pay dividends. It doesn't earn interest. It doesn't grow magically overnight. But when the financial system shakes, gold doesn't disappear. It preserves value. It buys survival. It buys time. And that's why central banks are obsessed with it. Over 3,000 tons in 3 years isn't speculation. It's insurance. If you want to stay ahead of the next financial shock, when currencies falter, debt loads burst, and markets collapse, then subscribe. Not for speculation, but for clarity, for awareness, to see the moves the mainstream ignores. Because what central banks are doing, quietly but relentlessly, matters more than any. Headline you read online. Pocket-sized investors rarely see this coming. They bought 3,000 tons in 3 years. And what they're preparing for could change everything. So share this video, warn others, because people deserve to know. Because when the dust settles, gold doesn't crash. Paper currencies do. And if you think this is just about gold, think again. It's about the future of money itself. The next decade could bring debt crises, currency collapses, and market chaos the likes of which we haven't seen in generations. The only question is, will you be ready? Because one thing is certain, central banks are preparing. Are you?